for the majority of my week, I work at the University of Oxford, where I share the principles, not all the time, but share the principles with PhD students who are studying the all too important subject of cybersecurity, which I know nothing about, but I just manage their program of study, and I share the principles with them. But I also have my own projects as well. Wellbeing, two little words that mean so much. And I was introduced to the principles back in 2010 by Jamie Smart, and he kept talking about well-being, and I heard other speakers talk about well-being, being innate within you, being your natural state, and all I heard was being well, because I had flipped the two words around in my head. For about 25 plus years I had suffered with a permanent headache. So I didn't feel well most of the time. So for somebody to tell me that my well-being was within me, and I actually heard being well, I thought, I'm just not getting this. So for the first 3 months of being within a sharing group, we used to meet once a month. I'm thinking, it must be me. I must be the exception to this principle, this rule, this natural state. Until one Friday afternoon on the 19th of November, I had set up my very first workshop event that I was running on my own. And it was running the next day. And I got to the end of the day, and I hadn't taken my medication. Up until that point I was popping 6 and 8 headache tablets, paracetamol, codeine, combination of all sorts, every day. But I got to the end of this day, and I hadn't taken any, and I thought, whoa, something not right here. So I ran the workshop fully expecting to be stressed out, my head to be very bad. No headache tablets. Got to the end of the workshop. No headache tablets. And this went on for about 3 or 4 days, and I actually had an appointment with a neurologist. And he said, oh, this is interesting. Given your history, this is interesting. But it's going to take 28 days for all the toxins to clear out of your body. I'm thinking, you're kidding me? 28 days without headache tablets? You've lost the plot. So I kept an online diary about what was happening each day. And I got to 28 days, 56 days, and so on and so forth. And I was reminded yesterday by our good friend, Facebook, that it was 6 years ago. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying I never have a headache. What I am saying is that on the 19th of November 2010, I woke up to my well-being. And the body gave me the signal that said, you don't need to take the headache tablets every day. What the medical fraternity don't tend to tell you, you pick up a packet of tablets from a pharmacy or even a supermarket these days, and on the back it'll say, don't take any more than 6 or 8 tablets in a day. So I was sticking within the rules, you know. I was not taking any more than 8 a day, but I was taking it every day. What they don't tell you is that, and this was pointed out to me by an acupuncturist who said, you really shouldn't be taking any more than 30 in a month, because analgesics create their own head pain or create their own pain. So at any point, while I was popping these pills thinking I was trying to cure the head pain. I was actually creating more pain. So there was never any point where I knew whether it was real headache or a created headache until I stopped. From that point, I was more in tune with what was going on in the body. And I was more aware that my being well had nothing to do with my well-being. They were completely separate. I shared a story yesterday in the relationships session I did with Miss Louise about my father. And the week before he passed away, I sat with him in a room and I stared into his eyes. He couldn't speak. His conditions were such he couldn't speak, he couldn't feed himself, he could hardly swallow. But in that second that we were in that room, I knew he was going to be okay. I knew that the well-being that he had arrived on the planet with 70 plus years earlier was still with him, as shining, as bright and as beautiful as when he arrived. And it was well-being playing out in the moment. His being well, his body was crumbling. The exterior, the facade was done. But his well-being was still as whole as when it arrived. And when I connected with him on that level, I was at complete peace. So I knew he was absolutely fine.
I'm Jack. First of all, I'm thrilled to be doing this with Maureen because she was one of my so-called students in extended professional training, and it just warms my heart. I was watching Louise yesterday do the same thing. It's just a beautiful thing because they do such a good job. And I know it's got nothing to do with me, that's for sure. Well, I don't really have too much to say. This is actually supposed to be we're supposed to be more facilitators of the discussion. At least that's what I was told. And I would like to do that. So I would just like to say one little thing before I open it up to you. And that is that it is absolutely one of the most amazing things that I can ever imagine to know that well-being is something that is part of our spiritual essence. Like we have it, whether we think we do or not. It is just there. And the only way that we can ever have the illusion that we're separate from it is when we inadvertently think ourselves away from it. When we inadvertently create illusions that we call reality about ourselves or about anything else in the world where we think we don't have well-being. It's just automatically there. So people who are searching to be more in well-being are automatically saying they don't have it. And as long as the search goes on, they don't have it. they think, so they think. That's why Sid Banks kept saying, give up the search. Give up the search and know. You know, it's very easy to see that what happens to us when our head clears, what happens to us when our mind calms down. We are automatically more in peace of mind. We automatically feel more well-being. You know, it's not a mystery. It's just so there, so present in our lives. And we go around thinking up that we don't have it. Crazy. It's a crazy thing that we do. I do it as much as anybody. So I really would like to open it up to you, and anybody have any questions or anything to say? What is well-being to you, and in your life, what makes it not be there? So,
yeah. Some of you know my story.
Speak up a little.
Some of you know my story of addiction to alcohol, and I think I was always searching for what I thought was well-being, which I perceived as confidence and being relaxed and whatever, with a drink. But I was fixing my feelings really, but I was seeking this well-being. I didn't, not those words, but a peace of mind must be in a bottle, and you know, feeling, hey, must be in a bottle. Until it took me to destruction. And it was only until nearly 2 years ago, no, a year and a half ago, that I found the 3 principles. It was the first time in my life that I ever felt the real well-being, which was the peace of mind, the clarity, and just the feeling of being, I'm okay, just as I am, I'm okay. And we were talking about success earlier, and I thought, my word, I used to think that success was the exams I achieved, but really none of that matters. My success now is that I'm not an alcoholic anymore, and I've got peace of mind. That's my biggest success, peace of mind.
It's just so incredible. I mean, this is the power of thought is so huge. We don't recognize how huge this power is. If we have a thought that peace of mind is in the bottle, then peace of mind is in the bottle for us. That becomes our reality. And until that thought changes somehow, I was talking to somebody before, we are not saying go out of our way to change our thoughts. We are absolutely not saying that. We're saying when our thinking changes, our experience changes, and thought changes on its own. So with Sally, a thought, a new thought. Whoa, what if peace of mind isn't in the bottle? Everything changes.
I was wondering about small children who are not in their thoughts with below 5, I guess, and a whole other system. What happens how could it be that they can be sick? They have their well-being, because I don't think they really acknowledge how sick they are. But they are sick, so the body has an impression of not being well. And it doesn't get into my mind how that works, because they don't have that thinking at that stage.
Which kind of thinking don't they have?
About everything, what I think, what can us make us sick. Any belief or anything. But with 5, they don't have a belief yet. And still they can be sick or dying even.
So you're talking about physical.
Yeah.
Physical illness. You want to say?
Yeah, so this is the situation I found myself in, where I was thinking that my well-being and my being well were the same thing, and they're not. They're completely separate.
Yeah.
So the little children are born with, arrive on the planet with complete well-being, just as you and I do, just as we all have in this room. The fact that they have a physical illness cannot impact their well-being.
Okay, yeah. I can follow, but still
But you still have
I have the feeling that you can actually produce by thinking your illness as an adult, within a belief or with your thinking, but that a child can't. So it must be something in the body which already is getting sick without thinking.
I would assume so. I'm not a medical practitioner, so I can't explain why one child will become ill and another.
Yeah,
down to their
question
DNA
I
and
have
their experience of that, but that's completely separate from their well-being. And I'm not saying that as an adult you can't create a feeling of unwellness or illness through thinking, because stress can create all sorts of reactions in the body. As a child, that's a different perspective altogether. And I understand your question on that.
You know, it's very, very interesting about what, the relationship between physical illness to what we're talking about with the 3 principles, because like when Sid Banks was first started talking to people on Salt Spring Island, there were people that had physical illnesses that disappeared. Now, years later, first time I ever met him, we were sitting around this big table, and Christine Heath, who was sitting next to me, brought up something about her, like some people in her family who had gotten really sick, and she was implying, like, if people were like really truly connected to their spiritual essence, wouldn't the physical illnesses go away or not be there? And he said, I'll never forget this, he said, it's very, very, very tricky when you talk about physical illnesses, because there are 2 things going on. There can be like bacteria, virus, broken bones, like things in the physical. There are things in the physical world. And then there's thought. So the things in the physical world, we can't think ourselves away from. But but there are so many illnesses that are, I don't want to, I was trying to use the word caused, I don't want to use the word caused, but where thought is a contributor, okay? And you see like so much about the placebo effect, which has to be just thought. People are thinking that they're taking a drug that they're not really taking because it's just it's a nothing pill. So you have that kind of thing going on, but also, there's the physical stuff going on. And so, to kind of tread in that world is very dangerous. That was the word he used. It was dangerous to think like that. Yeah.
I think there's also this. We make up what we think about being sick. So if people have, say, a flu, to me, that's not being sick, that's being healthy, because it's the body is taking care of the virus in the way it needs to, and there's a reason for the temperature going up, and if we can just let that happen, everything is fine. But sometimes we see it as it's a being sick thing.
Yeah. That's thinking. See, if we're physically sick, that's in the outside world, right? I mean, it looks like it's in the inside world because it's in our body, but it's in the outside world in terms of in terms of the spiritual world. Okay, so it's in the external world, even though it's in our body, and then we have thinking that makes us be in relationship to it. That's anything that comes up. It's always that. There's stuff going on in the outside world, and there's our thinking about it, which makes us make something of it for ourselves. We make meaning of it for ourselves. And it's the meaning we make for ourselves that get to us a lot more than what's happening out there.
So I'm sorry, Jack, when you were talking about the placebo effect, only last week a friend sent me an article about some tests that are going on in the States, and the placebo effect is so high now, but a lot of drugs are not passing the trials, which I found really, really interesting. I can pass it on to you if you want.
Yeah.
It was only last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but the interpretation of the placebo effect by the medical establishment has been completely different than they're looking at whether the drug is that they're measuring against is effective or not, and we're saying, wait a minute, what is causing people to actually get better? Thought. Wow, that's amazing. Yes.
I work in Wellbeing, helping people with therapies and kinesiology, and I know when I feel a sense of well-being, it doesn't always happen, but I'm aware of it when it's happening. And I know that I've learned tools, and other people learn tools to have a sense of well-being, whether it's yoga or meditation or listening to relaxing music or something, tools that you can use to help you find that space. What I'd be interested to hear is how, and I'm still struggling to comprehend this about the three principles a little bit, is because I know it's a happening. It's not, there aren't tools, there's not a box, you can't use this, you can't use that. Is how you use that. If you know what well-being feels like and you have tools to feel well and have a sense of well-being, but your mind is like this, and you know that it's your mind that's maybe stopping you from feeling well, and you have that awareness, you're observing it, you're trying to let it go. But if you have a busy day where your mind is doing that, and you've learned the three principles as well, or heard a lot about it in stories, and I have had some amazing mystical experiences where I understand, from my point of view, I feel I understand the global consciousness and the universal consciousness. But that still doesn't help sometimes. Sometimes you just have days where your thoughts are like that, and you can try doing yoga or putting on some music. So I'd just be interested to know how the three principles in that way helps you find that sense of well-being. Mm-hmm. I know it's not a button or a trigger, but
So there's nothing inherently wrong with yoga, meditation, going for a walk, putting music on. It's when you think that the going for a walk, yoga, putting music on, etc., are the solution. So if you do have a busy mind, it's understanding that doing what feels right in the moment for you. So, but it's not to turn it into a technique. It's about being mindful or being aware that we have choice in the moment. So, for me, if there's lots of stuff happening and my brain is going at 900 miles an hour, you can just let it go, and you can. But if you feel that you're drawn to do something, that's fine. It's when you think that doing something is the solution that's where you get caught up in the. Well, in my view anyway, that's where you get caught up in the. Well, I had a busy mind yesterday, and I did meditation. I've got a busy mind, and I felt great. And then I've got a busy mind today, and this meditation thing is just rubbish because it's not doing it today. It's because you've given the ownership of the busy mind, the solution to the outside thing.
Now I said, well, when those tools do work, you know, if I would start maybe doing a walk or start doing yoga, and that would work. I would feel well-being afterwards. But sometimes I just think, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go for a walk. Don't want to do yoga. I don't want to meditate. It's not going to work. My head's too busy today. And I'll sit and I'll say, okay, I'll just observe what's going on in my head, then I'll make a cup of tea or whatever it might be. I might have a busy day, I might not be seeing anybody. Or I might be thinking about all the people you are seeing and the appointments you have got. So just tell it to shut up.
if we had a switch, believe me, I would have bought it, and I'd have bought the premier version of it years ago. I'm minded of when you're saying that. I used one of the outside-in solutions, which works for many people around here, is to have acupuncture. And I went to the acupuncturist for 18 months. Started out weekly, then we went to fortnightly, and so on and so forth. And whilst I was lying down, relaxed, I felt great. As soon as I left the building, the headache came back. Well, what was going on? Why was I paying this person money? So the thing that was occurring for me was I just stopped for 30 minutes. But it never dawned on me during this 18-month period that was what was going on. It's only in reflecting back now I can see a bit more clearly as to what was occurring. Whereas I was thinking that this person putting these little needles in me was what was creating that sense of peace and calm for the 30 minutes I was in the session. Whereas actually I just stopped my world, for a short space of time. So I'm intrigued by the...
And I think that probably I do get to that point, you know, but it just might take a couple of hours.
But it's
I just don't have to go through this couple of hours.
Yoga, which I have come to love, meditation, which I used to do, taking a walk, which I do regularly, all those things are in the outside world. And basically what we're doing is we are giving ourselves an excuse to allow our thinking to let go of its grip on us. That's what ends up making the difference, whether our thinking lets go of its grip on us. So doing the dishes might achieve the same
distraction
thing, or because it's not the thing. It's that our mind relaxes. And when our mind relaxes, we are automatically in touch with our well-being because it never went anywhere in the first place. And that's somebody, it's so much easier to, and it's so much easier to see it that way than to think that we have to do something in order to get there. We're already there. That's what I was trying to say. We're already there. And we're just, it's like this beautiful sculpture that's in the middle of the room, and there's a veil over it. Now everybody knows the sculpture is still there. It's just you can't see it. You can't see it. Somebody pulls the veil off, we can see it because it never went anywhere in the first place. Well, that's the same thing with our thinking. Our thinking has a veil over our well-being, and when it's pulled off, it's there for everybody to see because it never went anywhere.
So how do we pull it off?
See, great question. By understanding that it's there and understanding that the only way it cannot appear to be there is when our thinking does it to us. And the more we look in that direction and see the truth of it, I mean, we'll know ourselves, within ourselves, whether it's true or not. Because it'll either do it for us or it won't. So just, look in the direction of what happens when your mind calms down. What happens to you? What happens to you in terms of a feeling of well-being? And then when your mind starts, scrambling again, what happens to our well-being then? And so the more we see in that direction, the more it lifts. Remember, Lisa?
I just thought about a really helpful lesson I learned once when I was in this mood, and I was really trying not to be in that mood, and I suffered so much from it because I didn't want it. And I said to my husband, "Say something." And he said, "Honey, you just don't want to feel what you're feeling. You just don't want to be where you are." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Because I realized in that moment there's nothing wrong with a busy mind except you not wanting it. So not wanting, or like making something of where you're right now is thinking too.
That's great.
And the more I see how the well-being has absolutely nothing to do with my doing, on the contrary, it happens whenever I stop doing. I just tend to be more okay with whatever mood, because it's not, the more I see it's not my business to change it.
It's funny because right before I bumped into the three principles, I had a little practice of meditation. And as soon as I had a personal experience with Sid Banks, it's like it just stopped. And ironically, I felt so much more well-being after it stopped than when I was doing it, because it didn't have anything to do with it. Didn't have anything to do with it.
I can share something. So I care for my mum who has Alzheimer's, and my brother, I have thinking that he should be doing more. And so I've had that thinking going on quite a lot. And during the week, I dropped something, a saucer on the floor. Was quite not in a good state. Mum was quite low, and I just lost something just went inside me, and I won't swear here, but I said I hate my mum went to the kitchen. I slammed the table. I said I hate my brother, and I said a load of things. But I had a sense that I needed to say it. It wasn't uncontrolled. It wasn't just me allowing thought to come through me in that moment. And even though my head was it was hurting afterwards, it was okay, because it was like something that needed to come through me in that moment. And no one got hurt. Mum laughed, which was good. Yeah, she laughs a lot now, a lot more. She thinks I'm funny now. Since I'm principled, I'm funny. So so that was a good example. So I didn't ruminate over it afterwards. I just thought, oh great, I actually feel better. Although my head's hurting, something's released from me. And it was okay that I said all these things about him. because in the moment, that's what I felt. You know.
I would have laughed too if I saw you, Tony.
You would have. I'm going to get some cameras put in the kitchen. But yeah, so my well-being was still okay in that moment, even though I suddenly went into this sort of rage of frustration and everything. I knew I was totally okay while I was going through it.
See, we can do that. We can do that if we know that it's coming from us, and that it doesn't mean anything, and it will pass. We can drop. We can get angry. We can get sad. We can suffer, as long as we know it's an inside job and it doesn't mean anything for our well-being. It's very comforting. I mean, how comforting is that?
Other people might not see it, you know. If I get angry next, you know, tomorrow at my husband and I shout at him, you know, and after a little while I said, well, that wasn't me. He doesn't buy that one. Well, that wasn't.
Well, you wouldn't want to say that wasn't me. You would want to say, I'm so sorry, I lost myself. I got caught up in my thinking and I you know, it just ran away with me and I didn't catch it in time.
Yeah, good to help me out with that one.
Because somebody was talking to Sid Banks and I happened to be standing around and witnessed this and Sid was kind of in a low mood and the guy said, "Oh, Sid, you know, it always seems like you're in a low mood right now." And Sid Banks said, "So what?" Doesn't mean anything. What? Yeah.
I was just going to say something about the outside doing it for us, because my experience of my own being well has been dramatically affected by learning the principles. And I came on your training, and a few months after the first training I did with you, I really went downhill, certainly in terms of my mental state.
I have that effect on people.
And I remember having a conversation with you about because I was attributing it to the training. I was attributing the good place that I felt to the training. And for me, that's been over the years, that's been a really interesting place to look, and I feel it this time in VIVA as well. That as soon as I come to VIVA, at the end of yesterday, I was feeling. I've been feeling pretty shitty physically for some time, and then at the end of yesterday, my body had started to go, "Oh, I like being in this soup," and it's starting to revisit its well-being. And at the end of the day last night, I was thinking, this is okay, I'm ready to go home now. I kind of filled up. And there was just something you were saying about it's not in the walk, it's not in the meditation, it's not in the yoga or whatever. And it just struck me that I'm, even now I'm still, well, it's not in the being in the three principles soup. It's not in that either. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, there's still a part of me that kind of feels I need to be amongst these amazing people. and I don't. You know, it's so tricky, because this feels so nice. You know, it feels so lovely, and you know, I know as the days go on, it starts feeling more. You know, and it's not that. And so it's like so. It's such a habit. Such a habit to think it's out there.
Right. You know, it's funny because even though the three principles are in the inside world, as being formless as they are, what we do with the three principles is in the outside world. And we can't get tricked by that. I understand, but not healthy to get tricked by that.
No, I'm just reflecting, just as you were saying about the VIVA effect. That going to any event around the principles, no matter how small or large the event, I hear people say all the time that, oh, I love coming here, I love the vibe, I feel so good coming here. So, but you can feel good at any point. We just get caught up by the illusory thinking around, or the meaning that we give to coming to VIVA, going to the innate health conference, going to whatever event. And so we're just being momentarily caught out by this sneaky little thing called thought. But it's just the fact we lose sight of the fact that we have well-being at every moment, whether we see it or not. But we can have that nice feeling at any moment, whether you realise it or not. No matter what's going on in the physical body.
And let's remember that it's not just thought at play here. It's consciousness and mind at play too. That our thinking would mean nothing to us. It would just go, whatever we thought would just go floating off into the universe. It wouldn't mean anything. But consciousness is involved. Consciousness is what takes whatever we're thinking and like throws it back to us and makes it look and feel absolutely real. That's why we get so tricked. That's the reason.
So would you say that the well-being is when we are just in that mind state, in that universal mind state? That's when we are, well, that's the sculpture you're talking about, the thoughts, the veil, and the consciousness that's created the sculpture in the veil, maybe, or, I don't know, just trying to add some kind of, make it more easier to see, because sometimes it doesn't feel easy to see.
I remember Roger saying, you don't see little babies with self-esteem problems. They're not thinking about themselves. That's the only difference between them and us. We think about ourselves. As soon as we think about ourselves, we lose touch with our natural state. It's the only thing that can ever be going on. So, that's why in terms of a relationship, for example, when two people come together and they're just in the process of being together, they do great. As soon as they start thinking about each other and themselves in relationship to each other, that's when a relationship starts to go downhill. Yes.
I have one question because when I talk about people, about destinate health, destinate well-being, we already have. And talking about little babies, they said, okay, but there are babies that come to the world with heart disease or any other disease. And how can you relate them to this innate well-being? I understand, okay, it's in the body, something is outside, but there is no thinking, there is, okay. So, how can you explain somebody is born into the world and he is not completely in touch with his well-being because he had some issue, some heart disease, some any disease?
Well, I mean, it's just really what I said before, is that the physical problem is in the outside world. And even a child has thinking in relationship to it. But that doesn't mean that I mean, if you took a look at babies who come into the world with physical problems, you know, a physical problem is going to, well, I know in my case, I'm just speaking for me, when I have a physical problem, it's more difficult for me, for my thinking to be relaxed and calm. And I would suspect that that's the same with babies.
But if they have a heart disease, for instance, they are just born
Yes.
with a heart disease. So,
Well, we're not saying that thought creates heart disease. We're not saying.
no, I know, I understand this. But where is the well-being of the baby?
I don't know, it's hard to think like a baby. You know? Babies don't have language yet, so we don't know what's going on with them.
Well, the well-being is there all the time, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Even though you have heart disease.
That's right. Because the well-being is spiritual. Spiritual.
Yeah, may I say something? I think there is a tendency for some sections of the alternative health community or just people in general to say that illness is we cause our own illness, and it's sort of blaming the victim type of mentality, which is very insulting and hurtful to people who are ill. And I think it's a confusion between being well and well-being. I think a baby can be born with an illness or a deformity or anything, any of us, or he can have an accident or an illness or a sickness. But that doesn't change that we're perfect inside. The baby is still a perfect divine being. The body is the outside. It's not even our innards in our body are still outside. They're still a separate issue to our divinity. It's not about a person bringing an illness to themselves. Their thinking can make that illness their story, but it's not really. That's just the facade. They still have perfection.
Wow, you said that so much better than I did. Well, actually.
Just on that point, I'm 25 weeks pregnant at the moment, and at our 25-week scan we got the news that our baby has talipes, which is a very mild it's clubfoot, it's also known as his left foot is twisted. And we came out of the scan and I immediately went into this place before I had a chance to really look into it. You know, that my child is going to be born limited, you know, that he already, maybe he's not going to be able to be an athlete or, you know, something like that. And I caught myself, thanks to the understanding, after a while, and I thought the only thing that's going to limit him is if I put all of this crap onto him, you know, is the thinking around having a twisted foot, which, and so for me that was a huge thing. I realised that again it's the interpretation that we have of the condition, or, you know, in sickness. Someone said earlier about, I think it was you who said, you know, we define certain things as sickness or bad, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean that whatsoever. Our body's doing what it needs to do. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Great, thank you. Over.
1 minute.
1 minute. 1 minute, Louise.
Do you think I should talk more than if you have 1 minute? Maybe you should just do it.
Why not?
Well, I just wanted to say that to me it seems that the younger we are, the more we have this tendency to just follow, like to not hold on to hurtful thinking too much, so that when my children hurt themselves, like getting the knee hurt or something, they cry and then they're completely over it. Then they go into something else, like each day showing me this exciting sore, how the scratch looked today. Whereas if I get hurt, at least before, I was thinking more about it. And I see when I speak to people who's lost, like I spoke to a couple who's lost a baby, and they felt so bad, and we talked about the children, the other children, how they were in and out of the grief. They were crying over the baby that died, and then they were out playing, and the parents did not allow themselves to do that so much because they thought they weren't allowed to be happy. So it's just like, our well-being is naturally there for us if we follow the flow of life.
And on that note, we have to end. Thank you all.
Thank you.